Before the story begins, I'd like to ask you to subscribe and like. This will help the channel grow. The Case of the Vanishing Smoke, a detective mystery story. Detective Nora Helwin had solved murders, robberies, fraud cases, and even once discovered that a supposed cult ritual was actually a group of accountants trying to spice up their team-building weekend. But she had never been called in because a smoke detector was depressed. Yes, depressed. Officer Yates' exact words over the phone were, "Detective, the smoke is gone," which was absurd. Smoke doesn't go missing because smoke isn't something that exists long enough to warrant filing a report. But when Nora arrived at Cherry Lane Bakery, the owners insisted something genuinely strange had happened. At 6:14 a.m. the bakery filled with smoke, thick, white, choking. The staff evacuated. They called the fire department. But the moment firefighters entered, the place was spotless. No smoke. No trace of any smoke. No smell of burning. Nothing. Even the cameras picked up a foggy haze, and then, in the next frame, perfect clarity. What did remain was the malfunctioning smoke detector on the ceiling, blinking rapidly like it was trying to tell a secret. Nora inspected it, and found its sensor completely fried, curled metal edges, almost like it had been exposed to intense heat. Yet, not a single surface in the bakery showed burns. Even stranger, the baker, Mr. Lunge, claimed the smoke wasn't ordinary. It formed letters. He swore it spelled the word asterisk. Return. Asterisk. His staff backed him up. Nora checked the ovens. All cold. The wiring. Perfect. Gas lines. Intact. Flour bags. Untouched. But Clara, the assistant baker, admitted that someone had been messing around the day before. A jittery man in a long coat buying 20 bags of powdered sugar and asking whether the smoke detectors connected to the city emergency grid. He left a note on the counter. A single line. "The city is breathing wrong." And suddenly, the missing smoke didn't feel funny anymore. Nora ran the mysterious note through handwriting analysis. Nothing in the national database. No matches. No prior incidents. But the powdered sugar purchase was logged in the bakery's payment system. The man used a card belonging to Harvey Dusk, a freelance chemist and amateur inventor known for filing bizarre patents. A machine that recycles size, a refrigerator that freezes noise, and a blender designed to soften reality. Harvey lived in a converted greenhouse on the outskirts of the city. Glass walls, solar panels, shelves filled with jars labeled things like distilled giggle, compressed regret, and prototype, edible shadows. Harvey greeted Nora barefoot, wearing goggles and holding a coffee mug that said, "Mad scientist is a hurtful stereotype." He seemed harmless, until Nora noticed scorch marks on the ceiling. "Detective," Harvey sighed dramatically, "I told them not to laugh at me." "Who?" "The Department of Environmental Soundscapes. They rejected my study on artificial smoke behavior prediction." He explained, with genuine passion, that smoke behaves like a living organism under certain acoustic conditions, and that he had been experimenting with resonant heat signatures. "But something went wrong," he whispered. "My smoke didn't evaporate. It vanished. Where smoke goes when it disappears. I don't know. But I think it went somewhere it shouldn't." Nora spotted a stack of notebooks. Inside were sketches of billowing shapes forming words like listen, hush, and return. "Have you been in the bakery recently?" she asked. Harvey nodded. "To test the sensors." "Why?" "Because the city breathes loudest at dawn, detective. And sometimes, smoke listens better than people." Before Nora could ask more, a loud pop echoed from Harvey's lab. A cloud of gray mist surged under the door, swirling like a snake. It formed a shape. A spiral. Harvey froze. "That's not mine," he whispered. The mist slithered along the floor, curling around Nora's boots like a cat greeting its owner. Harvey scrambled onto a counter shouting, "Don't inhale it! Don't look at it!" which made absolutely no scientific sense. The cloud pulsed, and a faint whisper reverberated through the greenhouse. "Heard you!" Nora instinctively reached for her weapon, though she had no idea where she would aim. Harvey yanked open a steel drawer and grabbed an odd-shaped device resembling a megaphone fused with a toaster. "My acoustic stabilizer," he declared proudly. "It calms aggressive smoke." He pressed the trigger. Instead of calming anything, it emitted a soft jazz jingle. The smoke vibrated, expanding into a humanoid outline. "Harvey," Nora said slowly, "your machine is playing elevator music." "It's supposed to," he yelled, panicking. "Smoke loves saxophones." The shape dissolved, then reformed on the opposite side of the room, closer to a cracked ventilation pipe. It squeezed itself through the opening and vanished with a faint hiss. Harvey exhaled in relief. "Well, that was rude." Nora followed the ventilation duct outside. The pipe led underground toward the city's old fire tunnels, a network of forgotten emergency shafts once used to redirect smoke from large industrial fires. Most had been closed off decades ago. That evening, Nora accessed the municipal records. The fire tunnels were no longer monitored. But one thing stood out. A real-time environmental sensor in Tunnel 9A detected a 25-second smoke anomaly earlier that morning, exactly when the bakery incident happened. Another sensor picked up a whisper-like frequency, transcribed as, "Breathing wrong." Nora felt a shiver run down her spine. Someone, or something, was moving through the fire tunnels. The next step was obvious: descend into the tunnels. The next step was also incredibly stupid. The tunnels were colder than Nora expected, too cold. Harper, the city's fire department historian, guided her through the entrance near the old water plant. Their flashlights cut thin beams through the stale air. "These tunnels used to redirect smoke from factory fires," Harper explained. "Massive vents, fans, acoustic dampeners, the works. But after the 1980s, they shut it all down." "Acoustic dampeners?" Nora repeated. Harper nodded. "Yeah. Back then, they believed certain resonance frequencies could control fire spread patterns." Nora felt her stomach drop. Harvey's research, the bakery incident, the whispering mist. Inside, the tunnel walls were lined with enormous cylindrical chambers, old fans, rusted over, still wired to the grid. They looked like mechanical lungs. And as they walked deeper, Nora noticed ash on the floor, not fresh, but stirred, as though someone had recently passed through. Suddenly, her radio crackled. But instead of dispatch, she heard, "Return, return, lungs wrong." Harper's flashlight flickered violently. Then the air shifted, a low rumbling, like a creature inhaling. From the far end of the tunnel, smoke began rolling toward them, thick, heavy, but moving with disturbing coordination. It wasn't pushed by air, it was walking. "Run?" Harper suggested weakly. "Run," Nora agreed. They sprinted, but the smoke kept pace like it knew the tunnels better than they ever could. Every turn they made, it took the same. Every doorway they ducked into, it surged after them. Nora spotted an old emergency valve on the wall. "Ban override." She slammed it. Nothing. Harper kicked the panel. Sparks flew, and the tunnel roared to life. Ancient fans spun, screaming, pulling the smoke backward in violent spirals. The tunnel echoed with the sound of thousands of whispering voices being dragged away. Nora fell to her knees, trembling. Harper gasped beside her. Then Nora saw it, a symbol scorched onto the tunnel wall, a spiral, the same the smoke had formed. Someone had been teaching the smoke where to go. Back at the precinct, Nora spread out every document, tunnel blueprints, Harvey's notes, sensor logs, historical maps. Something clicked. The fire tunnels weren't positioned randomly. They formed a pattern, a perfect radial shape around the city's center, like ribs around lungs. A breathing system. The city wasn't breathing wrong. It was breathing differently. Harvey barged into her office, holding a jar with swirling gray mist. "I caught a piece of it," he announced proudly. The jar trembled in his hands. Nora scanned Harvey's new notes. Smoke, under the right frequency, could store vibrations. Vibrations could store meaning. Meaning could become patterns. Patterns could communicate, Nora realized aloud. The mist in the jar pulsed once. Harvey shrieked and nearly dropped it. Nora reviewed the bakery footage again. The smoke didn't just appear. It entered the building, moving through vents that connected to the fire tunnels. The bakery was built directly above Tunnel 9A. "What's in Tunnel 9A now?" she asked. Harvey grimaced. "Not good things. The city diverted hazardous materials there in the 90s. Chemicals, solvents, old prototypes. Heat sources too. A heat spike sent yesterday. The smoke behaving like it had a message." The word, return. Nora's phone buzzed. Environmental sensors were going haywire across the entire tunnel system. Resonance patterns matching Harvey's failed experiments began forming citywide, without any machines active. Something beneath the city was reactivating itself. The tunnels felt like they were alive, and they wanted attention. Nora and Harvey descended into Tunnel 9A, the epicenter. The air vibrated with a deep hum. Dust floated upward instead of falling. Every step echoed twice, as if the tunnel repeated itself. At the center of the chamber sat a massive old machine, an experimental fire control prototype abandoned decades ago. But it was running. Tubes glowed faintly. Fans breathed in slow, rhythmic intervals. And in front of it stood a figure made entirely of smoke, swirling, forming crude human proportions. Harvey froze. "It learned to imitate us." The smoke figure drifted toward the machine and pointed. The machine's central display flickered on, showing decades of recorded environmental data. Fires, heat patterns, human activity, sensor feedback. Nora realized the horrifying truth. The machine had stored every fire event for 40 years. The smoke wasn't supernatural. It was encoded memory. The tunnel system had become a massive, semi-sentient repository of the city's past burns. And the smoke was trying to warn them. The machine projected a map, a red flashing point beneath the East Industrial District. Harvey gasped. "That area is still full of volatile chemicals." Nora swallowed. "If there's a leak—" "Not a leak," Harvey said quietly. "A buildup." The smoke figure pressed its hand to the ground. The entire tunnel shuddered. A catastrophic ignition was imminent. Nora grabbed her radio and issued an emergency evacuation. Harvey, thinking fast, connected his stabilizer device to the old machine, amplifying the resonance that controlled smoke flow. The smoke surged out of the tunnels, not attacking but guiding. It flowed beneath the industrial district, smothering heat buildup, sealing vents, diverting pressure. A massive explosion was prevented by minutes. When it was over, the smoke figure dissolved, gently, peacefully, like it had finally finished speaking. Harvey whispered, "Detective, the city wasn't breathing wrong. It was asking for help."